Welcome to Non-Fiction Reviews. Talking to Strangers, by Malcolm Gladwell is a thought-provoking book that delves into the art of communication and the misunderstandings that can arise when we interact with strangers. The book begins with the case of Sandra Bland, a woman who was pulled over for a minor traffic violation and ended up in jail, where she later died. Gladwell argues that her death was caused by a misunderstanding between Bland and the police officer who pulled her over. Gladwell goes on to explore other cases where misunderstandings led to tragic consequences, such as the case of Amanda Knox, a young woman who was wrongly accused of murder in Italy, and the case of Bernie Madoff, a fraudster who was able to deceive investors for years. Gladwell uses these examples to show that we often make assumptions about people based on very little information and that these assumptions can lead to serious consequences. One of the key takeaways from the book is that humans are not as good at reading people as we like to think we are. Gladwell argues that we are too quick to judge people based on their appearance or behavior, and that we often make assumptions about people that are not accurate. He suggests that we need to be more aware of our own biases and be more willing to question our assumptions about people. Another takeaway from the book is that context matters. Gladwell argues that we often fail to take into account the context in which people are behaving, and that this can lead to misunderstandings. For example, he points out that people who are under a lot of stress or pressure may behave in ways that seem irrational or unpredictable, but this behavior is often a result of the situation they are in rather than their character. Gladwell also explores the concept of transparency, which he defines as the idea that people's behavior and intentions are easy to read. He argues that this is not always the case, and that people can be very good at hiding the true intentions. He suggests that we need to be more skeptical of people who seem too transparent, as they may be trying to deceive us. The book also touches on the idea of trust, and how it is built and maintained between strangers. Gladwell suggests that trust is based on a set of cues that we use to judge people's intentions and behavior, and that these cues are not always reliable. He argues that we need to be more aware of the cues we are using to judge people, and be more willing to adjust our judgments based on new information. Here are 5 takeaways from the book. 1. The default assumption that we have about strangers is that they are truthful, but this assumption can be dangerous. Gladwell illustrates this with examples like the Cuban spy Ana Montes, who was trusted by the US government for 16 years despite her being a double agent. 2. Gladwell introduces the idea of default to truth and coupling, where he argues that we assume people are telling the truth until we have a reason to doubt them. This leads to the idea of coupling, where we assume that what we see is directly related to the truth of the situation. However, Gladwell shows that these assumptions can be problematic. 3. The book also explores the idea of mismatched communication and how this can lead to misunderstandings between strangers. Gladwell gives the example of the arrest of Sandra Bland, a black woman who was pulled over for a traffic violation, which escalated into an altercation and ultimately her death in police custody. The communication between Bland and the officer was mismatched, with the officer interpreting Bland's behavior as a threat. 4. Gladwell argues that there are certain types of people who are better at talking to strangers than others, including Border Patrol agents and airport security screeners. These people have been trained to look for certain behaviors and signs of deception that the average person might miss. 5. Gladwell explores the case of Bernie Madoff, who was able to deceive investors for years with a Ponzi scheme. He argues that we are often too trusting of those in authority or with high status, and that this can lead to our downfall. In the case of Madoff, his status as a well-respected financier led people to overlook warning signs and red flags. Overall, Talking to Strangers is a fascinating and thought-provoking book that challenges our assumptions about how we interact with strangers. It highlights the dangers of making assumptions about people based on very little information, and suggests that we need to be more aware of our own biases and more willing to question our assumptions. By doing so, we can become better at communicating with people from different backgrounds and avoid misunderstandings that can have serious consequences. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more content on non-fiction. Let us know in the comments what other non-fiction books you like to see on our channel.